I really can't explain how excited I am to start on this brand new journey with you guys. I will still make content over other games, he said untruthfully, but I really am just going all in and betting my entire hand on Donkey Kong Country right now. And I wanted to dive headfirst into some bizarre and crazy lore that really doesn't get enough light shined on it, and I wanted to give my 2 cents on some of it. So, before we get too far in, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and join our awesome and ever-growing community of Nintendo fans. And with that out of the way, let's begin our journey and dive right in to the bizarre lore of Donkey Kong Country. As you've been playing Donkey Kong Country, you have definitely noticed the ancient ruins, the temples, and the sort of out-of-place architecture scattered throughout all of the game's levels. They're everywhere. They're deep in the jungle, they're high in the mountains, and even inside cavernous, forgotten chambers. And they all raise one big question: who built them? The game never really tells us. There's your answer. There's no official in-game lore or backstory explaining these structures, but that has not stopped players like myself from speculating, theorizing, and thinking of who built these things, why they built them, and where they came from. Over the years, as the games have progressed, fans have come up with a bunch of different theories, drawing from real-world history, game design choices, and even connection to other Nintendo franchises. So I picked out a couple of my favorites and some of the most probable and my favorites, and I wanted to talk about the possibilities and see what we can piece together with what limited, very limited information that we have to go off of in the first place. One of the most straightforward explanations is that the Kremlings themselves, the main antagonists of the original trilogy, built these structures. They're clearly an ancient civilization, or at least descendants of one. In DKC 2, we see them living in medieval-style castles and massive industrial complexes, and this kind of suggests that they've had the resources and the manpower to build large structures in the past. Some evidence that supports this theory in particular is the presence of Kremling statues and iconography in some of the temple levels, especially in DKC 1. You can kind of see them in the background and on these totem pole things, and the architectural similarities between the ruins and some of the later Kremling fortresses bear a lot of similarities, and the fact that the Kremlings seem to have a fixation on treasure, power, hoarding resources, traits that are very, very frequently associated with past civilizations that built large monuments and temples and fortresses like we see. However, there are definitely some problems with this theory. The ruins in Donkey Kong Country appear much older than the modern Kremling technology that we see in the games. If the Kremlings did build them, it was likely their ancestors rather than the current generation. I would suggest probably a rich, long-lost Kremling history that we have no idea about, and one that has probably been forgotten or buried beneath their modern, more invasive and industrial way of life. Could the Kremlings have once been a thriving empire that maybe collapsed, leaving only these remnants? If so, what the heck happened? Did internal conflict destroy their civilization, or did another force drive them to decline? Another little wrinkle with this theory is that the Kremlings, as they are now, don't seem particularly interested in the ruins. They're not going after the Kongs, trying to take them back, or the temples or anything. They just kind of forgot them. They occupy them in Donkey Kong Country, but they don't appear to be restoring them or maintaining them or trying to reconstruct them into their former glory. This might suggest that they don't even fully understand their origins or where they come from at all in this vast, confusing universe of Donkey Kong lore, which could mean that they either inherited these structures from an even older civilization, which we'll get to, or have just long since abandoned the knowledge of their own past, and maybe they don't care. Maybe they just don't care about their past. Maybe they weren't getting anything out of these temples or out of these mines, out of these ruins. So what is the point of fighting over them, and what is the point of occupying them and trying to maintain them if they're not going to get anything out of it? Another possibility, and probably the most likely, is that an ancient Kong civilization built these ruins. The modern Kong family, our main characters, Donkey, Diddy, Cranky, Dixie, Funky, Candy, and all the rest, they might just be the last remnants of a once thriving society. Some points that I gather that point towards supporting this theory are that the ruins are often found in areas where the Kongs live, very close to them. maybe suggesting that they have a very deep historical connection to them that, like I said, we just don't know about. Cranky Kong, who is the original Donkey Kong, often talks about the past as if he remembers an older, maybe more advanced time. He's always reminiscing on the past and what happened and what, how he wants to go back to those days. And the temples resemble structures found in real-world primate inhabited regions like the Mayan and Aztec ruins down in Central America, which we'll get to later. And if the Kongs once did have an empire, it's possible that maybe it fell into decline for reasons unknown. The ruins could be all that's left of a golden age where the Kongs truly ruled the island, only maybe to be displaced or diminished over time. Perhaps a great conflict with the Kremlings led to their downfall, forcing the surviving Kongs into a more nomadic, tribal existence like we see in the games. Alternatively, natural disasters could have also played a role. Volcanic eruptions, rising sea levels, or even mysterious, supernatural, out-of-this-world forces might have devastated their civilization, leading to its maybe gradual disappearance. This would explain why the ruins seem so abandoned and overgrown and just not taken care of. Some versions of this theory suggest that Cranky Kong himself is one of the last members of this lost civilization, and that his old school attitude comes from remembering a more structured society that no longer exists. Could Cranky be the last historian of the ancient Kongs? One who refuses to let go of the past? Or is he simply an old ape and really nothing more? If we step away from in-game logic and lore and backstory for a second and look at Donkey Kong Country as a piece of art, as a piece of game design, we can see very obviously that the ruins and temples were heavily inspired by real-world Mesoamerican and Southeast Asian architecture. A lot of the temple designs in the game look like the Mayan pyramids and the step temples, or the Khmer architecture from Cambodia, like the temples of Angkor Wat, or South American Incan ruins such as Machu Picchu. That's a big one to me. It's possible that, simply put, Rare, they just wanted to pull inspiration from these real-world locations without intending for the ruins to have a deep lore connection. But even if that is the case, it raises another question. If the ruins in DKC are modeled after ancient Earth civilizations, does that imply that the existence of a lost, advanced society in the game's universe? Does that imply that whoever did build these temples, regardless of who it was, if they did in fact draw inspiration from real-world places, real-world structures, how did they do that? How did they have the capacity to look at pictures, to maybe go visit? It doesn't make any sense. A lot of this doesn't make any sense, and that's why I'm having so much fun with this. As we move on to my final theory that I have here, this is probably my favorite. This is my favorite theory, and it might not be the most likely, but it's my favorite, no doubt, and it's a dang fun headcanon to have. In DKC Returns, we're introduced to this brand new set of villains, the Tiki Tak Tribe, and they're this ancient mystical tribe, race thing that seems to predate the Kremlings by a long time, and they have a deep connection to Donkey Kong Island itself. The Tikis seem to embody ancient spirits rather than a civilization with tools and architecture, but it's possible they once had a society that built these structures. I think that the Tikis were once a thriving civilization that left behind ruins as they faded into their spiritual forms. And if that is the case, what happened to them? Did they transcend, or were they wiped out by an opposing force? I really like this theory, and it feels like it gives the Tikis a lot more motivation and backstory, and I like to think that maybe, just maybe, way back then, maybe the Kongs and the Kremlings teamed up together to fight the Tiki Tak Tribe, because I think the Tiki Tak Tribe is more powerful than the Kremlings. I think Tiki Tong and the way that they can hypnotize people, they could easily hypnotize the Kremlings into fighting for them. So I think they are the strongest force that they've ever faced. And here are a couple more reasons why I think this might be the correct theory. In DKC Returns, the Tikis appeared to be dormant and hiding for God knows how long inside the volcano, and they weren't awakened until it erupted. They could be the oldest beings in the entire Donkey Kong universe. Let that sink in for a sec. They could be the oldest beings in the entire lore, whatever, what have you, in all of Donkey Kong. Another interesting idea is that the Tiki Tak Tribe used the ruins for maybe dark rituals, or even as prisons for their enemies. I urge you to think of this stuff as you're playing through Donkey Kong Country 1 again. Just have these in your head as a headcanon. Like, imagine that Tiki Tong once roamed these halls checking on his prisoners to make sure that none of the Kremlings or none of the old Kongs had escaped. There is some really, really fun theorizing, and I have had so much fun making this video. And getting back to that, sorry, I'm rambling. Perhaps these structures, they weren't just pieces of worship, but sites of control and power. Maybe these were like fortresses. And if that's true, then the ruins in Donkey Kong Country might hold a lot more sinister secrets than we realize. Every place that we go to in these, standard 2D platformers might have so much more lore and backstory and meaning and events, key events that might have happened throughout all of this. And it's so exciting. I don't even know why it's exciting. It's just fun to think about. I'm going off my script a lot here, if you couldn't tell, but this just really excites me. It is so fun to theorize, and I cannot wait to go through and read your guys' comments. What are your personal headcanons as you're playing through these games? Because I know that there are plenty, and that makes gaming so much more fun. I'm completely okay with us not knowing who built the ruins and some of the temples in Donkey Kong Country. The game never gives us a definitive answer, and that's part of what makes them so interesting. They add a big air of mystery to the world, something that makes the setting feel deeper than just a backdrop for platforming. Were they built by the Tiki Tak Tribe possibly hundreds of thousands of years ago? Maybe by ancient Kremlings, the first Kremlings? A lost Kong empire? Or some completely unknown civilization that we simply haven't come across yet? Each theory has some evidence supporting it, but none of them obviously are conclusive. That's why it's theorizing, and honestly, I'm thankful for that. It makes for so much more interesting discussions when we don't have a clear-cut yes or no answer. I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I really hope you look forward to more videos in this series coming very soon. This was so fun to me, just having me theorize about the lore of Donkey Kong Country. It's something that I never thought of, and huge shout out to the guy on the screen right now. He's the one that left a comment on my most recent video saying I should just go down the rabbit hole, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go down this rabbit hole, and we're going to talk about theories, we're going to talk about Donkey Kong Country lore, we're going to do all of it together on my channel, and I hope you guys are down for the ride. So thank you guys so much, as always, for watching, and let this video just serve as a reminder that sometimes the mystery itself is what makes a world feel alive.